The new Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has the biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch ever, making it even more comfortable on your wrist. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. Introducing the all-new Apple Watch Series 10, now available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminum. Compared to previous generation, iPhone XS or later required. Charge time and actual results will vary.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Positive pregnancy test, and then bam, you're hit with a never-ending, overwhelming list of products that your baby seems to need. But do they really? This week, I'm joined by Hannah Fox from Which. Hannah Fox is a parenting and health journalist with more than 17 years experience in the industry.
As you say, there's so many products that people will say you need to buy. Realistically, when you look at it, there's actually only a few that you really need to buy. And even then, it kind of depends on your lifestyle.
Slings are such an interesting one, aren't they? And I always say they're a little bit like jeans in that what brand fits you and I in jeans is going to be very different, and slings are so the same.
I don't live in London now, but in the past I lived in London. It was all about the lightweight pushchairs and strollers. Whereas when you get out of cities, you tend to find that it's slightly chunkier tyres.
Hello, I'm Pip, and welcome to the Midwife Pip podcast, the home of expert information and real chats on all things pregnancy, birth, and beyond. Positive pregnancy test, and then bam, you're hit with a never-ending, overwhelming list of products that your baby seems to need. But do they really? And how do you choose the right products for you that they actually do need? This week, I'm joined by Hannah Fox from Which. Hannah Fox is a parenting and health journalist with more than 17 years experience in the industry. She's the author of Mother and Baby Pregnancy Milestones and spent 4 years as a writer at Mother and Baby magazine and website. She joined Which in 2017, where she's a principal researcher and writer, looking after the testing and content for a range of baby and child product areas, including those big items like car seats and pushchairs. So we're going to break through the overwhelm and noise to actually work out what a baby does need and how to choose the right items for you and your baby. So welcome, Hannah. And wow, what a massive job you have.
Hi there. Yeah, it is. It's a lot of responsibility. Picking out products that you know are going to be safe and good for parents when there's so much out there. It can be overwhelming for parents. And so that's why we try to make it a little bit easier by testing the products and letting parents know what are the best ones out there that we think.
Definitely. But like you say, parents go so much on reviews of products. So it means that actually, you know, your feedback and your reviews essentially can really guide parents as to which they do opt for, which they don't opt for, which is why I think, you know, for someone like yourself, you take such a pride in making sure that you do a good job. So we're really, really lucky to kind of have you on the podcast today to break through that noise, because I know as soon as the world of the internet notices that somebody's pregnant by their searches, you just get bombarded, don't you, with so much. And it can be really difficult. And as mums or expectant mums, everyone's got an opinion of something that they're like, you've got to get this, you've got to get that. But we have to remember how we're so individual, aren't we? And it's not one size fits all quite often. What are the kind of main big items, Hannah, that parents need to buy for their baby? Because I think often these are the ones to kind of tick off first almost, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, when you're pregnant, you obviously, yeah, as you say, there's so many products that people will say you need to buy. Realistically, when you look at it, there's actually only a few that you really need to buy. And even then, it kind of depends on your lifestyle. So if you are living in the city, living in a flat, not owning a car, you could probably get away with actually not buying some of the really big ticket items if you really wanted to. So, you could, for example, you could just have a baby carrier to help you get around with your baby. But for convenience sake, we tend to expect that most parents will buy a pushchair and a car seat. Particularly, push chairs, it's all very well saying, oh, I've got a baby carrier, but if you're wandering around a shopping center or going on holiday, you're not going to want to carry your baby, no matter how tiny they are, for long periods of time, because it'll be exhausting. So a pushchair is a good option. And then, yeah, a car seat, as I said, it does depend. If you don't own a car, you might think you don't need a car seat. But a lot of parents will choose to buy an infant carrier car seat. So that's the first type of car seat that you would get, typically from birth to about 12 to 15 months. So those, they're the ones with the handles on them. You carry them out, carry your baby out of the hospital in them. And parents will typically buy one, even if they don't own a car, because they might want to have their baby in it to put on to a pushchair, or to use if they're getting into an Uber or taxi. It's always good to have your baby in a car seat. So those are kind of the key ones. Everything else, I mean, I guess, when you get home, you obviously need somewhere for your baby to sleep in. But all the other little items, like, very often you can hold off on those. We actually have done in the past surveys at which where we survey parents and ask them about the typical products that they find the most useful and the least useful. The most useful ones are the ones you would expect. So the push chairs, the car seats, the high chairs, that kind of thing. And then the least useful ones might be something like a nappy holder, or even something like a baby bath. You don't necessarily need a baby bath. You could just use a washing up bowl if you wanted. So it's important for parents to sort of learn how to, like, drown out all the you must buy this, you must buy this. The baby industry is worth millions of pounds, and so they are all, and you're going to get bombarded from every direction on what you need to buy. So we typically test the key baby items that we think parents really do need. So things like pushchairs and car seats and so on.
How do we stop that overwhelm, Hannah? Like, as a new mum, especially like a first time mum, how do you stop feeling like, oh my goodness, I need to buy all of these things? And I often say to parents that we live in a world of next day delivery. So, often we feel like we need to fill our houses before the baby's even here. So that's often one of the things I kind of try and remind parents. And then often you end up with the things you actually need rather than the things that the world's tried to tell you that you need. But
Yeah.
what's your advice to kind of stopping that overwhelm of like, oh my goodness, I need that? And then sometimes the more you explore one product, it opens up these other three accessories that you may somehow desperately need for that product as well. And it just spirals, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I would say try and break it down into sort of 3 or 6 month chunks of time. So those 3 months before your due date, that's where you can focus on buying a couple of the kind of perhaps bigger ticket items, but ones that you'll definitely need. So perhaps the car seat or the pushchair. Um, but don't go crazy. You don't need to buy your high chair when your baby hasn't even been born yet. So, you don't need to buy a stair gate because your baby's not going to start crawling for another 12 to 15 months or so. So, hold off, just buy what you definitely think you'll need. In those first few months, that's sort of fourth trimester, as they call it, you're probably going to just be doing a lot of sitting at home, relaxing, maybe not, but definitely feeding your baby, being sort of subject to their every whim, but essentially, not going that far. So you just need the items that will help you get through those first sort of few months. The everyday items. Make sure you've got plenty of nappies, but don't go crazy buying loads of baby clothes. Lots of baby clothes will be given to you as gifts, no doubt. So, you know, you just need something to carry your baby in or transport your baby in, whether that's a pushchair or a baby sling or carrier. You need somewhere for your baby to sleep, and you need something for your baby to wear. And then obviously if you're feeding, whether it's breastfeeding or formula, make sure you've got the kit for that. But don't go crazy. Like, you know, toys, for example, your baby's not going to really need any kind of toys in those first few months. You can hold off on that. And very often, as I say, that they might be given as gifts as well. So I would probably say, you know, split it into 3-month chunks. So say 3 months after the baby's born, that's when you might start thinking about perhaps, okay, well, in about 3 months' time, I might want to start weaning. I could maybe start doing a bit of research into high chairs. You know, 12 months later, okay, the baby started crawling. I'm a bit worried. Let's think about baby proofing the house, getting a stair gate, getting some locks on the cupboards or anything like that. 15 months, that's when you need to start thinking about your next car seat, if you have a car seat. So, you know, don't try and get everything bought and stashed in the loft or stashed in the garage before the baby's even arrived. Because apart from anything else, some things you might buy and then they'll barely use them before they've outgrown them or they just don't take to them. So, for example, we've tested baby carriers and slings in the past. And they are a really great item for, especially when your baby wants to be on you and close to you all the time in those first few months. But some babies just don't get on with them at all. So we always recommend that parents look out their nearest sling library. So this is effectively a library, but instead of books, it has slings and carriers. You can go there, try out, you can borrow a sling or a carrier for a week or two, try it out with your baby, see if they get on with it. If you put them in there and they spend the next couple of, you know, hours screaming blue murder, maybe they're not suited to that. But if you've already gone and bought the item, then you're stuck with it. And some of these carriers can be very expensive. So, you know, take your time with purchases and do your research. Like, have a read of advice and content. We've got absolutely loads of content on our website that's, you know, sitting above the paywall that gives advice on what you might need, what you need to look for in a product to ensure that it's the right one for you.
Slings are such an interesting one, aren't they? And I always say they're a little bit like jeans in that what brand fits you and I in jeans is going to be very different, and slings are so the same. So you're so right in that actually going to a place where you can try on loads of different types of this like vast, isn't it? Slings, wraps, carriers, all sorts of types. You can actually try on what fits you and your baby, and you can't do that beforehand because you don't know sort of what your body's going to be like postnatally, or you know what your baby's temperament's going to be like and how they're going to find it comfortable. So it's definitely one of those things to do, like almost that pre-bit of research in pregnancy, i.e. where's your nearest sling library, but not have to actually make those purchases. So parents that feel like, well, I need to be more organized, I don't like all this unknown, you can kind of do some of that pre-research and have an idea about things that you might want if you decide that you need them, but it doesn't mean you have to like stack your house with all the boxes.
Yeah, definitely.
And larger items and safety, I think, is really important. And that's one of the things that I know that you and the team at Which are really keen to sort of talk about. So what safety features should parents be looking out for those large items?
So yeah, safety is kind of Which's bread and butter. Like, this is where, you know, for baby and child products, this is where it all stems from. Like, the best products will almost always have a good result for safety. You know, they'll be good for other areas, convenience, performance, that kind of stuff. But when a product performs poorly at Which with a baby product, it's almost always because of a safety issue. So when it comes to car seats, we would always say for your infant carrier, obviously every baby has to travel rearward facing in the car. That's the law in terms of the latest regulations, and it is the safest way to travel. So when we advise parents when buying car seats, we obviously say try and keep your baby rearward facing for as long as possible. So when you get an infant carrier, it'll keep your baby rearward facing until about 15 months. And then the law says, and this is the latest R129 regulations I'm talking about here, they'll say you can turn your baby forward facing from this point. But we would always say, try to make your next car seat up. So this is your toddler car seat. Try and make that a rearward facing car seat. Because if you can keep them rearward facing up to at least 4 years old, that means that in a crash, the seat will absorb the forces of your baby moving in a way that will be much healthier than if they're forward facing. If you think about when a baby is born, and for the first few years of their life, the heaviest part of their body is their head. So if that head is moving forward after a crash, it's going to cause much more damage than if you're rearward facing. So we would always encourage parents to try and keep their child rearward facing. And there are loads of car seats out there. In the last sort of 5-10 years or so, the growth in rearward facing car seats is like massive and really good to see. So yeah, in terms of car seats, we would say, go for rearward facing, and just make sure that there's no possibility that the car seat might be turned forward facing too early. You can get a lot of car seats that twist on the base, which is really convenient because you can then turn the seat to face you. You're not like straining your back, that kind of thing. But it's just important that they can be remaining forward facing until at least 15 months, and if possible even longer. And then the other thing that we always say with car seats is
my brand new book, Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth, is now available. So much more than a book, this is a guide that allows me to hold your hand through your birth preparation journey. With over a decade of experience and knowledge packed in, to ensure you really are empowered in the way you deserve to achieve a positive birth, regardless of the twists and turns that crop up. Make sure that you get your hands on Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth book now, and are empowered to have the birth experience that you deserve.
To make sure they're easy to install. So that's one of the elements of our test program. When we test car seats, we're not just crash testing car seats. And I'd add, with car seats, we are the only UK review website that fully crash tests car seats. So we have our crash test results, but we also have our ease of installation tests. So this is where we get parents with their children to try and install the car seat and see if there's any confusion or if they make any mistakes. Because the reality is, if a car seat isn't installed properly, it's just not going to do its job. So it's, it doesn't matter how safely it performed in our crash tests. If it didn't, then, if it's not easy to install, then there's a chance that a parent might do it wrongly. So, and it's one of our sort of tips is, once you've decided on your car seat and you've bought it, make sure you install it or have a go installing it before you've even had the baby. Like don't wait until you get the first labor pangs or your waters are broken or anything. Practice installing it beforehand, because an easy and convenient to install car seat is super important. So I would say that's the key thing with car seats. And then with pushchairs, it's about them being sturdy and them being durable and reliable and that sort of thing. So when we talk about, for example, secondhand products, we would never advise using a secondhand car seat, because you don't know the provenance of the car seat. If you buy it off a Facebook Marketplace seller, you don't know what it's been in. You don't know if it's been in a crash. So, for car seats, we say don't buy secondhand. For pushchairs, that's less of an issue, but we would always say, look for products that are durable. You want to make sure that the frame and the chassis is sturdy. There's no cracks in it. And so if you're buying it new, it's the same kind of thing. Obviously, if it's new, it's going to be straight out of the box and fresh. But, if you're trying out a pushchair in a shop, give it a good sort of jiggle on the handlebar. Make sure it feels sturdy when you're steering it, that it doesn't feel unbalanced. Look for any kind of little toggles or bits of mesh that might be accessible for your baby within the sort of area that they're sitting in, to make sure that they couldn't access them. Obviously, with a newborn or a very young baby, they're probably just going to lie there. But if you're using this pushchair up to the age of 3 or 4, your child will be in there, and if there's something there that they could pull off, or get caught around any long bits of cord or strap, those are all kind of slight danger areas. It's where we see our failures when we do our pushchair testing. So that's what I would definitely look out for with a pushchair. And then for other kind of products, so you might want to opt for a baby monitor. Not always necessary. If you live in a flat and you can hear your baby from the next door room, you might not want to, but you might, a lot of parents like it because many have video capabilities. You can keep an eye on them. So our key thing with baby monitors is to make sure they're secure. So we sometimes see, particularly with sort of cheap online marketplace type products that are actually just a glorified security camera, we would say, you can sometimes see that they're not secure. So we carry out testing to make sure that they can't be hacked, because that is a real issue with baby monitors. A lot of the big brands are absolutely fine, but if you go for a sort of cheap, random brand that you find on, I don't know, Temu or something like that, you do have to be careful, because they might not have the same security system set up to prevent that hacking. And of course, the plus point of a dedicated baby monitor is that they will often come with things like a room temperature sensor, lullabies, light display, that kind of stuff, the ability to talk to your baby through the system as well. So that's for baby monitors. And then the other key one, cot mattresses. So we test cot mattresses. These are mattresses for cot beds. So you might, in the first 6 months or so, rely on a Moses basket or a bedside sleeper. But once you're ready to move your baby out of your room and into their own room and into a cot, then the key thing with cot bed mattresses, is that they're firm, they're flat, and there's no other sort of items in the bed. When we test our cot bed mattresses, we pummel them with weights. We check if there's any kind of way that a child could unzip the mattress and get hold of any of the, inside of the mattress, because it could be a choking hazard. We check if things like if the mattress cover will shrink after you've washed it, because if it shrinks and makes the mattress too small, then there's a risk that, it could create a gap between the mattress and the frame. So all of this, it's all durability testing. And cot mattresses is one of the other areas, alongside car seats, where we would recommend that parents buy new. Because if you're buying a secondhand cot mattress, you don't know if it's will have lost some of its firmness. And if it loses its firmness, there is a risk that your baby might turn over and it'd be a smothering risk. So obviously, we don't want parents to go crazy and spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds on things. But in some areas, we say it really is best to buy new. So those are, I'd say, are the key things. If you're looking further ahead, high chairs, obviously you want to make sure it's sturdy and secure, that the child can be restrained in the high chair. But with high chairs, the key thing is you don't leave them unattended for any length of time. But yeah, lots of things to think about in terms of safety. But with which we obviously test all of that and flag if there are any issues.
And I think that's the great thing, isn't it? Is that you are in this lovely non-biased situation where you can actually educate parents. And I'm so pleased, Hannah, that you talked about the rear-facing nature of car seats, because I think we see so much in the UK, and I know it's not like this from speaking to lots of car seat kind of experts. I know it's not like this in other countries, but in the UK, we have this like almost rush to forward face our children. And like you say, it's just not the safest place. It's just not the safest place for them to be. So it's really powerful, I think, that message of actually setting that precedence early. And if you've only got a seat that's set that rear faces, then that's never going to kind of come up as a hurdle. So thank you for bringing that up, and totally agree. It's kind of, especially that third trimester is a really great time to think about these big things, these safe purchases that are the things that really, if you can, need to be the priority of buying new. Those things that crop up later on with play mats and toys, actually that's when your secondhand market is brilliant, and you can wash them, and often they've not been used very much, and so that lifespan's brilliant, and it's a lovely sustainable way to shop. But from a safety
Yeah.
aspect, like you said, actually going onto Which, checking those key safety kind of considerations and then making sure they match up is really, really important. So thank you for highlighting that, because like, let's be real, let's call it what it is. That safety information saves children and babies' lives, doesn't it? It's a non-negotiable when we're kind of looking at things. So rather than getting caught up in the overwhelm of all the fancy nappy caddies and the bunting and all of this stuff that's very, very cute, but actually let's focus that time and that energy on the safety elements, which perhaps it's less sexy, but it's so much more important in terms of our priorities of our energy, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Key functions or comfort features that parents should look for, Hannah, and that your experience are really important. My top one has to be the basket of a pram. I want to be able to get as much stuff under there as I possibly can and to get it out nice and easy. But what have you
Yeah.
found that parents find are really key functions to kind of look out for?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree on the basket. It's so important because, when you've got bags of nappies and a change bag and all of that, and you're trying to stuff it into a teeny little basket, it's a total nightmare. And what happens instead is that parents then hang their change bags over the handlebars of a pushchair, and not all pushchairs are actually designed for that function, and it can actually seriously unbalance the pushchair. So we check the baskets. We actually have a test in our test program for pushchairs where we have a sort of selection of typical products that you might want to stuff into a basket when you're just on a shop. So it's like a packet of biscuits, a 4-pinter of milk, a packet of nappies, some wipes, and we'll put them into the basket just to double check that they can all fit in. But also, for example, if they will then catch the underside of the basket on a curb if you're pushing it up and down. So yeah, we will check the weight limit of a basket, make sure that it can fit that amount of items. But then other areas, so we know that parents love big hoods. So being able to recline your baby and then stretch the hood over while also being able to keep it, peek on them, and so a little flap that you can pull across to look at them. Those are super popular. We tend to check if the hood, when you're adjusting it, is really jerky. Because if your baby's dropped off to sleep and you're like, I'm just going to pull the hood over, if you pull it across and it kind of goes dong, dong, dong each time you pull it, that could jerk them awake. So we will check things like that.
No one wants that.
Yeah. But other popular features are things like telescopic or angle adjustable handlebars, so that if you and your partner are different heights, then it won't be uncomfortable for either of you to push the baby. We check things like whether the brake is flip-flop friendly. So when we talk about that, we mean, does the brake, when you put it down, you press it down, and that activates the brake and keeps the pushchair still. But when you have to release the brake, do you have to flick it up with your toe? And if that's the case, if you're wearing sandals or flip-flops, are you going to be hurting your toe or scuffing the top of your shoe? So we check things like that. We check whether the seat can be fully reclined. So pushchairs that can recline to 150-degree angle or more are designated as suitable from birth. But we have found some pushchairs that will say they're suitable from birth, but actually the angle of recline doesn't go back far enough. So we'll always flag that in the review. You want a seat that's nicely padded, a harness that's easy to adjust. So some harnesses will be very fiddly. If you want to change the height of the shoulders, you have to kind of get round the back and like thread bits of strap through, and it's a bit of a nightmare, whereas others you can just adjust from the front. So we sort of flag that, and that's something to look out for. And then let me think what else. I think those are sort of the key things. I mean, if a pushchair can take a carry cot, bassinet, or a car seat, that's always really helpful. It's good if the seat unit can be removed and turned around so it can be parent facing or world facing. Because in the first few months, you want your baby facing you, whether that's them in a carry cot or if they're in a seat unit, you want the seat unit facing you, because you need that face-to-face time in those first few months. Whereas as they get older and more curious, they want to be able to see the world. So then that's when, a world facing seat is good. We also check things like what the ride is like for a pushchair and how that is going to be for when you're pushing and for your baby as well. So we actually push chairs over a special kind of assault course that's made up of curbs and sand, gravel, wood chips, all sorts of different surfaces to see what it's like. We actually have a panel of parents that try out every pushchair that we test. So, if it's got really good suspension and you can sort of push the handlebar up and down and see what the give is like, then you'll get an idea of how comfortable the ride will be for your baby. We tend to find that the bigger pushchairs with the large wheels are will provide a better ride, but then the payoff or sort of the disadvantage of that is that they also tend to be heavier and bulkier. So it's very hard to get that sort of holy grail of like super lightweight, but also comfortable ride for your baby. And it's actually why we tend to, when I'm trying to give advice to someone who's looking for a pushchair, I'll always ask them, what is your lifestyle? Do you live in a flat? So are you going to have to be, with no lift, are you going to be dragging your pushchair up 2 flights of stairs? If that's the case, then go for a lightweight one, but just bear in mind that it might not provide as comfortable a ride. Or do you live out in the country and you've got a big car with a massive boot and you can fit that pushchair in there, but you're going to be pushing it over all sorts of surfaces? Then go for a larger one that has a comfier ride, because the weight of it is perhaps less important. So yeah, in terms of features, there's lots to consider with a pushchair. With car seats, as I said before, an easy installation. Look for car seats with a rotating base. They're super popular now, really common. And a lot of these bases, they're part of a modular system. So when we say that, we mean that you can use the base with the infant carrier car seat. And then when your baby's outgrown that, you use the same base. So you don't have to buy a new one, but then you buy the toddler seat and that clicks on in its place. And that effectively means that you've got one base to last you from birth to usually around 4 years. So yeah, look for a sort of rotating base. Make sure it's not too heavy. This is particularly the case if you are buying a toddler car seat, for example, and you're going to be moving it in between cars. So in between yours and your partner's car, or a grandparent or a childminder, having to yank that seat and drag it over to the other car every other day is going to, you're going to regret it if you've got a car seat that weighs 13, 14 kilograms, which some of them do. And then, just make sure that the car seat is well padded. It's comfortable for your baby. It's got a nice finish to it. But yeah, those are sort of the key things for car seats. And then I guess, baby carriers, as we've touched on before, they're a really great way of transporting your baby if you don't want to use a pushchair or a car seat if you're not going in a car. So we would say for baby slings, they're fantastic because they're so stretchy. They sort of mold around your baby and they hold them in that really important kind of frog shape. So we call it the frog shape or the M shape. It's effectively making sure that your baby's knees are up and not dangling down. You want them sort of up and effectively kind of in a little crouching position. So slings are great for that. But if you want to sort of move on to a carrier, because carriers tend to have a slightly longer shelf life, you might be able to carry your baby in them until sort of 18 months, 2 years. It's really important you pick a carrier that has a very wide base so that the baby's thighs are fully supported when they're being carried on your front or back. So once again, you want to look for it that when they're in the carrier, they're in a sort of like M shape with their knees and legs, so that the knees are slightly higher than where their feet are dangling down, and their bum as well. But yeah, so yeah, with baby carriers, they're useful if you and your partner are both going to be carrying your baby, because you can make adjustments quite easily. And we will, check those and test to see how easy it is to adjust the straps. But yeah, you just gotta make sure that it's supporting your baby well.
We are just taking a quick pause to share some key safety information. Shockingly, new research reveals that E. coli was found in 56% of babies' bottles. There is lots of feeding advice out there, whether it is breastfeeding or bottle feeding. And one potentially life-saving aspect that's often overlooked is how to effectively sterilize your baby's feeding equipment. It is really easy for feeding equipment, such as bottles or breast pumps, to become contaminated with harmful microbes, as milk, breast, or formula are an ideal breeding ground. A baby's immune system is still developing during the first 12 months, making them more at risk of becoming very sick. I recommend the Milton cold water sterilizing method to new parents. It has been used by hospitals, midwives, and healthcare professionals for many years, and I've used it personally with my boys too. The Milton method is a really easy, effective way to effectively protect your baby from harmful germs or bacteria. Milton has a wide range of great sterilizing and cleaning solutions to use at home or when out and about, helping you protect what's precious. I felt like a nodding dog then, Hannah, because I'm on baby number 2. So I guess I've kind of learned some of those things the hard way. And
Yeah.
some of those things that you're like, oh, adjusting the straps at the back of a pram, like, how annoying is that going to be? So annoying.
Yeah.
I would say parenthood is hard enough as it is. We really need products that make it easier, especially when we're spending a lot of money on them. We don't want to 6 months in be like, oh, such a regret. This is so annoying. This, irritating feature. Actually, you want these little things, I promise you, actually make a really big difference. So researching is so important. Trying to get your hands actually on the products if you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Before, I know we talked about it with slings, but especially with prams, trying to actually get your hands on the products beforehand is really important. And I definitely resonate with what you mean on the size of the pram. We live in a really rural area. So for me, it was like, I need big wheels. I need
Yeah.
big tires.
Yeah.
And I've tried using a smaller wheeled pram in the area that we live in, and I wasn't cutting it for anybody at all. I
Yeah.
felt like it was just going to break. So it very much is, where you live. Whereas if I've got to pop to London with one of the boys, actually a really little lightweight pram is perfect. Like it's
Yeah.
ideal. So we've ended up with almost like a dual pram system to
Yeah.
fit what's going on in our life. And we've got the luxury that we can do that. But actually, if you haven't, then it's really looking at what's going to be the priority and what's going to make your life easier, because they become otherwise really lumbersome. And we want to be able to enjoy these moments with our babies, not be frustrated by, products and features.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that little, those little things where you try it and you go, oh, that's a bit annoying. And say you notice that in the shop, you're trying it and you're like, oh, that's a bit of a funny fold. Like the fold is another one which parents have very strong opinions on. If the pushchair fold is fiddly or difficult, you could probably do it the first time. You're like, oh, okay, it's fine. 6 months down the line, when you've got a baby in one arm and it's screaming and you're trying to fold the pushchair to get on a bus,
and
yeah,
yeah,
that is going to be literally the worst thing in your life. So it is, that those types of things are really important for sort of making sure you get right. But yeah, I mean, I don't live in London now, but in the past I lived in London. It was all about the lightweight pushchairs and strollers. Whereas when you get out of like cities, you tend to find that it's slightly chunkier tires, all-terrain models, that kind of stuff. So as I said, it's really up to your lifestyle. There's no kind of right or wrong choice. Obviously, we choose our best buys and so on, but a best buy for one parent might not be the right one for another parent. So you've just got to have a think about what your life is like, or how it, if you are thinking of moving out of London, then maybe you would get a bigger pushchair, or out of any other city. But I think you've just got to think what's working for you, and then choose the pushchair accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. So much information, Hannah. So many helpful tips and tricks to get parents kind of off to the best start with choosing these items. But everyone that comes on the podcast, I ask for 3 top tips. And this may well be like a little summary because you've shared such amazing ideas and tips already. But would you be able to share with new or expectant parents listening your 3 top tips from your experience on simplifying kind of things to buy for a baby?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say, first off, take your time with the big ticket purchases. So do your research, read up on the products, watch the videos. There's loads of videos that manufacturers make that demonstrate, what a pushchair can do, or the functions, or how it might fold, and same for car seats as well. So do plenty of research, and do it now while you're pregnant, and you've got a bit of time, and then, make your decision. Obviously, read the witch reviews if you can, it can be really helpful. But, talk to other parents, see how they've got on with items. If you've got a sibling that's already had a baby, what did they think of their pushchair? What did they like? What didn't they like? But yeah, do your research now. And then, I would say also take some parenting tips and thoughts and advice with a pinch of salt, because the parenting sphere has some extremely strong opinions. So, ultimately you've got to go what's right for you. You've got to trust your gut, follow your instinct. But yeah, if you've done all the research, and then hopefully you'll have a slightly better idea of where to start. I'd say as your baby or child gets older and you do start to think about other little items, just be careful of online marketplaces. So we've done so much research and investigations into the types of products that are sold on these sites, and it is rare that we find that the products are good, or that they sell, that they're properly tested to the latest standard. If you stick to the key retailers, you'll be safe there almost always. I mean, I can't always guarantee it, but almost always they'll be the safer option. The online marketplaces tend to they just flood the market with a lot of products that are coming, from abroad, that haven't necessarily had all the testing. We've done investigations into toys and baby carriers and everything from teethers and slime and all sorts, and almost always the ones that come that are too so cheap, or too good to be true in terms of price, there's usually we're going to find something wrong with it. So just be mindful of that. And then I'd say third tip, sign up to the Witch Family newsletter. We've got a free family newsletter. It goes out once a month. It's got absolutely loads of advice in it. We frequently let parents know about recalls of products, if there's any kind of safety recall on anything. But it's also got all sorts of other stuff, advice on the best family car, or tips on claiming any kind of child benefits that you might be allowed, or even things like the best baked beans. We test a lot of stuff at Witch, and there's a lot that applies to parents, prospective parents, new parents, and families in general. So I'd say sign up for that, because there's loads of stuff and it's completely free. So
amazing. Oh, Hannah, thank you. And thank you for all that you do to make parents' lives easier, because we need it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I head off, I need to tell you something. 68% of you who listen to my show have not hit the subscribe button. So can you do me a favor? And if you've ever enjoyed listening, hit subscribe now. It makes a huge difference, helping me to keep bringing you episodes. And together, we can then reach and empower more women on this journey. If you are a pregnant or newly postpartum listener and are looking to have the healthiest, most positive and informed journey, then my exclusive Your Pregnancy and Your Postnatal Journey courses may be for you. I work with a select number of women in a bespoke way, with unlimited access to me and my expert team, for the most transformative level of support at this important time in your life. We only get one shot at getting this time right. So to get in touch and find out more, head to midwifepip.com.
Hi, I'm Sam Baker, and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40.
Anyone that's worried about turning 40, I say hurry up and get here. This is where the party is. This is the good place.
Created and hosted by me, journalist and author Sam Baker. I started The Shift because I was so tired of the absence of older women's voices.
3 little injections around my eyes, and suddenly I was like, oh, I just got the last year back. I'm not trying to look 30. I just want to look 42.
Where had all the women over 40 gone?
You know, nobody ever gets addicted to kale. You get addicted to things that kill you.
So I created The Shift to make a space to talk about everything from life, love, sex, to careers, confidence, mental health, menopause.
So, I mean, seriously, if you want to walk about in your pyjamas for the rest of your life, we're invisible.
Each episode I speak to an inspiring woman about her shift, the second half of our lives.
I feel very strong and think I genuinely don't care what anybody thinks of me. And that does come with age.
Join me every Tuesday, wherever you listen to your podcasts.